Hey, how you doing, everybody? It's Sid from the Sid Chase Group coming to you today from Sid Chase Capital, and we are going to talk about two things. The first one is real quick, and the second one is what I thought was really interesting. So the first one is a little tip for you, either for yourself, for your parents, or maybe to help somebody you know. The 37 states that don't tax Social Security benefits, but there's a catch. And then there's 2 states that do something else. So let's cover them really quick, right? So seniors are taxed on all kinds of things, right? And not just seniors, but everybody, right? From their savings, investments, Social Security, ordinary income is what they call that, right? So it's taxed accordingly. But there's 37 states that don't impose a Social Security tax, right? At the state level. And as long as, here's the catch, as long as you're solely living on Social Security alone, right? So you have no basically other incomes again, right? So hopefully all of you that are watching this and watching other videos will never get to the point where you're living on Social Security alone. Matter of fact, hopefully you get to the point where it becomes not even a topic or a line item in your retirement picture, right? I don't count on Social Security. I don't look at it. I don't fit it into my numbers of my retirement. None of that, right? So whatever it is I get is what I get, and whatever I want to do with it is whatever I want to do with it, right? So let me tell you, the first 5 states at the top are Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, and unbelievably California. Okay, the bottom 5 are Wyoming, Wisconsin, Washington, Virginia, Texas, Tennessee, South Dakota, and yes, South Carolina, the state I am not from, but where I'm at. There's also 2 states that do tax dividends and investment income, just not Social Security, okay? And that's Tennessee and New Hampshire. For me, Tennessee, yeah, I'd probably look there to live in retirement. New Hampshire, not no, but hell no. It's too cold. It's not going to happen. And their taxes up there are pretty high. So that's just a quick tip on 37 states that don't. We're going to have them below for you so that you can take a look at them and plan accordingly, or do more homework through Google and see how maybe that would benefit you if you're getting closer to the time you want to be on retirement. Or maybe you take a look at those states and you might know somebody that lives in those states that are on Social Security and maybe aren't, their tax person isn't doing the right thing. Or maybe you know somebody that lives in a different state and is willing to move, which is a pain, but it is possible, right? Every little dime helps. So I hope that helped you guys out. Hope you use that as information, as a talking subject. Make yourself look really smart when you're out, and to help, most importantly, to help other people. So the real topic I wanted to talk about today is, what I found this very interesting, is how the 5 richest families lost it all. That's right, folks. The 5 richest families who came up in the heyday, boom days, and manufacturing days of this country, right? And they made their money how? Well, let's talk about who first. Vanderbilts. Everybody's probably heard the name Vanderbilts, right? So they became rich from steamships and railways. Once the wealthiest family in the United States. Here's why they lost their money. Like literally today, folks. 100 and some years later, not a single descendant of the Vanderbilts have any wealth accumulated from their descendant, okay? And they'd overly spent on classic art, sprawling mansions, gambling, and what goes along with gambling, liquor and women, right? And maybe even drugs, probably not back then so much, but definitely the women, and all of that. They just overspent. They had no constraints. They had no budget, and they just thought what they had done was going to last forever. even think there's a steamship left in the country except for some antique thing, or maybe occasionally something cruising up and down the Mississippi, and if I'm wrong, please tell me, but hey, they've kind of gone to the wayside. And railway, it's not what it was back then. It's not that. So they didn't continue to move along with society in the world. Okay, the lesson: no matter how much wealth, control your spending, budget, invest wisely, and open a high yield savings account. Or that, now, when I say open a high yield savings account, back then they probably really didn't have those so much, right? But you're only using that to park your money, right? Because we love one word: velocity. That's one of my favorite words, velocity. Why? Because the faster I make my money move, the more money I make, right? So if it's in a high yield savings account, it's just sitting there, right? Getting maybe, today's high yields are 2.5%. I think I just looked at Citi Online Bank was 2.39, and then somebody called VBB or WBBV or something like that, Online Bank, they were paying like 2.50 or 2.59. That's in this time, how do I want to say it, in this day and age, that those are high interest, but you don't want to leave them in there. That's not a vehicle, right? It's a storage place. That's how I want you to think about that. Think of your savings account as a place for storage. Yes, you may want to put I know we're getting off the subject here, but you may want to put an emergency fund of $5,000 or $10,000 in there just so that you have it in case it's liquid really quick. But other than that, the only other thing you're going to use those for is to put your investment money in so you can get in and out quickly and score on these investments that you're finding. All right. The Clugs. Got to be honest with you, didn't really know who they were, so I had to do my research, and basically they made their family fortune being TV moguls. They sold Metro Media for over $4 billion. It was the basis for Fox TV stations. The family's fortune was split up due to a divorce. Ooh, is that a telltale sign of Amazon? Because we just went through that. That cost them $38 billion. Stick around, see what happens on that drama. All right, bad investments, like vineyards and mansions and things like that. I mean, matter of fact, Donald Trump bought one of their mansions. It was in foreclosure. And he got it for pennies on the dollar compared to what they had sunk into it. And the lessons with this one is make informed investments, start low risk investments like certificates, bonds, treasuries, things like that. Those are real slow. They're like turtles, right? But they're safe, right? Or you could do peer-to-peer lending. I read a lot about peer-to-peer lending. I do a little bit of it. But I'm very, very selective on who I let borrow my money, and I go back and look at the other video we did earlier, and I talked about collateral. So to me, that's very important if I'm lending somebody money. I'm not normally don't lend any peer-to-peer if somebody is looking to collateralize their credit card debts, right? Because if they're not paying the credit card debts, they're damn sure probably not going to pay me, right? So, and then I got no collateral, so I end up losing everything. So I don't mind loaning. It's got to have decent collateral and easy for me to be able to retrieve that collateral if things go wrong. The Hartfords, they turned a small retail coffee and tea stores in America into the first grocery store, which was AP, and we pretty much know they're no longer around. There might be a few places that are up with the signs up, but as a whole, they're not there. So their son actually inherits the fortune, squanders everything, right, and just failed. The business has failed, and they're not here. And he lived the lavishing lifestyle, and he might have enjoyed it, but after that, nobody else in the family did, and so that one was gone. So the next family we have is is the Pulitzers. That's right, Pulitzers. You should know that. Publishing. Made his money from publishing. He created a huge empire. His grandson basically started to take over and bought citrus farms in Florida and other types of holdings, and they just failed. They didn't fail because of something he did wrong, but because it was a commodity investment, like oranges and pears or anything like that, they got diseased. And it just wiped them out. And I'll give you a better example that my sister and my brother-in-law, they owned, I think they were the 5th or 6th largest pig farmers in the state of Illinois. They were huge, and they actually were so big that they were big enough and powerful enough to, wealthy enough to create a co-op. And but they didn't really know what they were doing. The pigs got diseased. They went year after year after year, just with having bad luck with that. And I used to go there in the summers and work the fields for them, because they pretty much did all of their own. What do I want to say? Their planting and their wheat and the oats and all of that, for the pigs themselves. And they have nothing today. They've lost it all, literally. All of it. Millions and millions of dollars gone. Not just the money, but the original house that he built, the farms that they built. He almost took his brother down with him. And luckily they had split up right before that. And not a good situation. Not a good situation. And today, they live on the system, unfortunately. So that's that. But Pulitzers did kind of, that happened to them too. And the Strauss, S-T-R-O-H-S, beer barons, right? So they had all kinds of beer. They probably drank their profits. Let's go on to the next one. Who do we got next? Because that's a simple one. They just drank their profits. But it was just amazing to me that, these families had not just millions, folks. They had hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. And take the Vanderbilts, for example, 100 and some years later, and not a single one of them have any money from that ancestor who left them all of that. Now, the only one that I know of that's a descendant of them that's doing real well is Anderson Cooper, but he did not make his money. He did not get any of that money from the original, right? But now let's take the Rothschilds, for example. The Rothschilds, Mr. Rothschild, he left his family, and I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, and I didn't write it down, I apologize, but it was somewhere north of $200 million in today's money, right? 100 and some odd years later, they all had a family get together. Every single family member, all 140 some of them, all of them are millionaires. Why is that? That's the real question, right? So out of all of this I'm talking about, you have really two questions. What did they do to lose it? And what did they do to keep it? And those are the things that you need to study so that you do not make the same mistake for your family. So what did Mr. Rothschild do? He left some instructions, right? So he created, in his mind, what they call a family office, right? And so did the other families. The problem is the other families didn't leave the instructions or the right person in charge, right? And just because you have a son or a grandson or a daughter doesn't mean you have to leave it to them. You could leave it to somebody else and they manage that person, right? But with the Rothschilds, he said, we need to meet every year as a family and go over what our expectations are. During that meeting, we need to continue to get to know each other as family, and we need to share our ups and our downs in every business deal that we've done to help the other family members with ideas of what to do and what not to do. That was very important. That's self-education for the family, right? The other thing is that their family put into the family fund a little bit of money every single month, right? That money then got reinvested into other projects that then the family members could turn around and take a loan from the family coffer, we'll call it, or the bank, the family bank, right? And then the family then had to pay back, the family member had to pay back that loan from the family with an interest rate. And the interest rate depended on what it was he was using the loan for. So if he was, not normally buying a car or paying off debt, it's there, you can use it for that. But really what that stuff is for you to borrow the money, right, to go buy some type of investment vehicle that brings you in cash flow that you can then pay back what you owe to the family, and then the rest of it you get to keep. But think about this, as you're paying that back, you're really paying yourself back. A portion of that is going to end up coming back to you, right? That's how that works. We do that at the Chase family. We've been doing it for a few years now, okay? Not as big as them, but we're doing it, and we're working forward. And I'm actually thinking about doing another video that talks about the insurance banking and what they call infinity banking or family wealth banking, things like that. So I'm considering doing one of those, and I probably will. But going back to the Rothschilds, so those were the things that he put in place, that if you didn't do that, you were out of the loop. You couldn't borrow the family money. If you didn't attend the picnic, you were out, right? So he had set guidelines. He left them an instruction booklet, kind of like God did, right? And whether we follow it or don't follow it, that's up to us. And how we follow it ends up giving us good or bad results, right? Now, I'm not pushing religion on you. I'm just using it as an example. Okay, so if you have any questions about that type of stuff, let me know. Google it. You can find a lot of what I was just talking about. It's all over the internet. And I appreciate you taking the time. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. If you have any questions, leave them below, or invest at sidchase.com, and you can also click on, there's a link in there that says book me, and if you want to talk to me for a 20-minute consultation, I'll be happy to do that, answer any of your questions, look at a project for you, whatever. There's no charge for that. You get one of those. After that, then I do charge for consulting, walking you through a project, a deal, helping you with your budget, credit, whatever it may be you need. We're a full wealth family office, so we pretty much have all the tools we need to help everybody. And I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.